legendary, one of the leaders of the American Jewish community, one of the most influential people in American history, Rabbi Mark Golub. What a pleasure having you.
It is always a pleasure to be with you, Aryeh. And if there's anybody who has made a difference in Jewish life, it is you. Before you came to America and after you've come to America. And through Rage, you've done just miraculous work.
But you know what you did? You really expanded the reach by creating TV programs,
Mhm.
but basically also being a person of a theater and being very creative how to bring the Jewish values to people from all folks of life. It's like the temple, the Beit HaMikdash, was a source of light, and the idea was to bring sparks of light into the darkest place of the world. So too, JBS is a free television that is reaching all over the United States of America, and I believe through social media also the world.
That is lovely.
And
By the
I'm
way, I will share with your audience. Your audience will be the first audience to hear this, what I'm about to tell you. I'm not making this announcement till tomorrow on JBS, but I will tell you this is for you and your, I don't know what you call them, viewers, followers, whatever, social media. The largest cable company in America is called Comcast. And Comcast is in many cities across the United States. It's not in New York and Los Angeles, but outside of New York and Los Angeles, in terms of Jewish communities, the single largest cable company reaching Jewish homes in Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, throughout southern Florida, and then going to the west, Houston, Pittsburgh, um, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, and then many other more minor Jewish communities. Comcast serves those communities. Comcast has never put JBS on, and therefore people who have Comcast in their home can't watch until, Hanukkah is right around the corner. The night before Hanukkah, the day before Hanukkah, December 8th, mark that down if you have Comcast. December 8th, JBS will premiere on Comcast channel 1684, 1684, and it will be free to anybody, excuse me, who has what's known as an X1 box. If you don't have an X1 box, you can just call Comcast and they'll deliver one for you. So we're going to be now in 75 million homes, and you're correct that there will be a greater reach. And I hope more and more people will be able to enjoy and learn and be inspired and be able to learn about Judaism and the state of Israel. So that's what's happening to us, and you're hearing it first, are you?
We are celebrating the meaning of the deepest meaning of Hanukkah, which is to take the light of your own Jewish home and share it with the world.
That's beautiful.
We're not hiding it. We want to share
Oh,
it.
we're not hiding it.
And you know what? Also, I have to tell you, I learned many, many years ago. I believe it was like, who knows, 1993, maybe in your office, one of your people said to me, a person who worked with you, he said to me, when I opened the Evreiski Mir, the Jewish, world
Yes.
newspaper, he said to me, he said, it's not just about the messenger, it's also about the message. He was excited that so many people subscribed to the newspaper that was growing rapidly then. I want to tell you also about the JBS. It's not only about the messenger, because the messenger are cable, and satellite programs. It is about your unique message of love to people, all people. And this is really overwhelming. I also wanted to tell you that you have in your JBS programs most outstanding stars of the Jewish world.
Yes.
Alan Dershowitz is one of them.
Yes. I'm very lucky.
You are.
I am very lucky.
In a way, I am jealous because Alan Dershowitz today, I'm just wondering, what did he tell you? Because Alan Dershowitz is a constitutional lawyer with tremendous, tremendous experience, a lifelong Democrat. And today his opinion is, and who else do you have on your TV? Can you also tell us like one of the most known to our audience people?
It's interesting. I wouldn't know the names that they would know. These are basically people who are serving the Jewish community. And I could name rabbis, I could name Jewish communal leaders, I could name authors and singers. Um, we've had on a number of former refuseniks. One of my favorite interviews of all time was with Yosef Mendelevich.
Yes.
And by the way, our audience should know you did 2 programs with me, which I run very often, where you describe your own personal journey and how difficult it was for you. And this is when you were still living in the former Soviet Union, and you were a refusenik, and you were teaching Hebrew, even though it was dangerous to do so. And some of the most well-known of refuseniks came through and studied with you. So Yosef Mendelevich is a name people would know. But, do people know the name Abba Eban? Do they know the name Elie Wiesel? Both of them have since passed, Zichronam Livracha, but they were on an awful lot. And, we're right now going to be doing a program with a man your viewers probably don't know the name, Floyd Abrams. Floyd Abrams is the number one, he's the leading First Amendment lawyer in America. First Amendment is freedom of speech. And so we're going to be talking to him about one of the most complicated issues of our time. At the moment, there is an attempt to censor speech. And the way it's censored is by calling it hate speech. And hate speech should be censored. It's not protected by the First Amendment. And the First Amendment says that if you are inciting others to violence, if your speech will cause physical harm, it is not protected by the First Amendment.
Mark, I have to tell you, I interviewed you 30 years ago, so almost. And you said to me that you would protect the speech or the right of neo-Nazis to demonstrate in Chicago, Jewish neighborhood.
Correct.
As long as the freedom of speech is protected in the United States. And
Correct.
the only limitation is, I heard it from you and I learned it from you, is to scream fire in a crowded theater.
Correct.
Which immediately endangers life. I'm a good student.
You're a great student.
So, and today we are actually facing an attempt by the social media that was actually an advocate for freedom of speech and not censorship by even editorial decisions of big corporations like CNN or others, and allowing people to post anything they want, and suddenly they now decide who to silence and who not. So basically, the technical companies became the authority, correct? And this is you want to discuss? That is your discussion with the person?
That's what we'll be discussing. The
Wow.
question will be, number one, what is, my panel, he'll be one of a panel. What do they think about the way in which social media is now taking upon itself the right to decide what people who are on Facebook or Twitter, what they can or cannot read? And Twitter and Facebook's argument is people post things that are not true. And if it's not true, it shouldn't be allowed to be spread. But very often, it's not clear what's true or not true. It's a matter of opinion. An opinion should never be stifled. And you remember very well, and I've been committed to the principle of free speech. And there's a very famous line: I may disagree with you, but I'll fight to the death to protect your right to speak. And it's because if you can be silenced, I can be silenced. And I happen to feel for Jews, American Jews, the issue of free speech is especially important, and I'll tell you why. The First Amendment and the Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution, includes things like freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, to gather together to protest whatever you're interested in, as long as it's not violent. Freedom of religion, and it's not freedom of religion, although that's what everyone says. It's freedom from religious tyranny. There's nothing that stops Americans from being religious, but it stops the government from imposing upon the people a state religion.
It is also protecting religion from the government and
No,
patronizing.
that's exactly what it does.
Right, right. Because otherwise, the religion, like in Soviet Union and the PS to Russia today, actually, the official religion becomes the ideology of the government, and you're loyal to God, loyal to the president.
That's correct. And there's the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms, which is a very controversial amendment, because the question is, was the intent of the founding fathers that people should have handguns in their home, or was the intent of the founding fathers that people should have in their homes a rifle to join a militia, a local army, to protect itself against invading countries like Great Britain? It's not clear that the Second Amendment was ever meant to protect people's right to own machine guns in their home. But my point for mentioning the Bill of Rights is that the Bill of Rights was written to protect minorities. In a democracy, there's always a danger that the majority could become a mob. And a mob mentality is what destroys. Mobs never build, they only destroy. And people think that America is a simple democracy. It is not. America is what is known as a representative democracy, which means Americans don't get to vote on everything. But Americans do get the right to vote on who their representatives will be in the local government and in federal government, Congress, men and women, and senators. And then the senators have the obligation to vote the way in which their conscience tells them. At the same time, they're always supposed to think about, what do their constituents, what do their voters, what do their supporters, what do the people of their state want? And America has always understood that you never let the majority rule outside of Congress. You never do a national referendum. You can have a state referendum. A referendum is a vote. Should we do this or should we do that? Should we spend money on this or should we spend money on that? That becomes a vote of the people. Simple majority wins. But when it comes to federal law and the way America operates, we don't allow the mob to rule. I'll give you an example. What would happen if a majority of Americans decide that yes, Christianity should be the state religion of America. And we took a vote of all the Americans in the country. And how do you like that? More Americans voted yes than no. If we were a simple democracy, the Bill of Rights would be overturned, and all of a sudden there would be a state religion. I'll give you a better example. And I apologize for fiddling with my earpiece, but I'm going to have to do that the whole show. Here's a better example. This is a real life example. And it's one, REA, that shaped me. In the 1940s and 50s and early 60s, that's my early childhood and my growing up years, there was formal segregation in the United States of America. If you went to Florida or Georgia or South Carolina and you stopped at a gas station for gas and you went in to use the restroom, there would be two restrooms, one for whites and one for coloreds, for Negroes, for African Americans. When you rode a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, if you were a Negro, you sat in the back of the bus. If you were white, you sat in the front of the bus. If you were black, Woolworths wouldn't serve you at their counter. They would only serve whites. And then it got much more brutal than that. The police were horrendous, brutal. They did terrible things to African Americans. And if a Negro looked at a white woman, he could be lynched. I assume your audience know lynching means you're hung from a tree. That was America of my youth. And in Alabama, black children were not allowed to attend white schools. And then there came an attempt to desegregate America, to end this ugly, heinous, inhumane, totally un-Jewish, by the way.
Absolutely.
Totally un-Jewish. You may not be a racist and a Jew. The two, it's an oxymoron. You can't do it. You could be a bad Jew and be anything you want, but you want to be a real Jew, you can't be a racist. Anyway, there was a decision that, lo and behold, Alabama's schools would have to accept, the white schools would have to accept African Americans. Now, Alabama made the following argument. We don't want to. If you take a vote of our state, the people of our state don't want the land to be, the country to be desegregated. If it's a democracy, Alabama argued, we have the right to say, no, we're not going to desegregate. But it became a federal law. And the federal law doesn't care about voting one-on-one. Once a federal law is passed, it applies to everyone, even the minority. And therefore, there was this dramatic scene in Alabama where the governor of Alabama, named George Wallace, stood in front of the door of a school in Alabama and said, no Negro is going to pass and enter this school. And federal U.S. Marshals came down to Alabama and personally escorted Black students into the school. And there was this moment when the Marshals faced off against George Wallace. And George Wallace stepped aside, and the federal government walked those children into school, and it began desegregation. And then 4 years later, after John F. Kennedy was murdered, assassinated, under Lyndon Johnson, America passed the Civil Rights Act, which was federal law prohibiting any form of discrimination in any facility that receives public funds. And that changed the face of America, and it's evolved more and more and more over the years down to the year 2020. That's an example of how the majority does not rule when it comes to issues of personal rights and free rights and what we believe is good for society. And you can argue, by the way, anybody has the right to say, you know what? George Wallace was right. Alabama should have the right to exclude children. And if you can convince enough people in the government to agree with you, you can change the law. But the law now is you may not discriminate. If we took a vote, it might have been back in the early 60s, the country would have voted for segregation, but it doesn't matter. What matters is it became the law, and the Bill of Rights protects minorities. Now, I said to you, one of the things that I'm concerned about most is how Jews are treated in America under American law. The reason American Jews have done so well in America, certainly from the 50s to the 2020s, is that we've been protected as a minority. You know, we celebrate Thanksgiving next weekend. I hope this is, my experience is that immigrants from the former Soviet Union and their children are often more appreciative of the gifts of America than our Native Americans. So, lo and behold, the people who used to watch RTN that I knew, they got it. They understood. They felt so lucky to be in America. And that's true for Jews as a whole. There's a very famous letter from George Washington to the synagogue, the Touro synagogue in Newport,
Rhode Island.
And George Washington wrote this letter to the president of that synagogue. And in the letter basically said, I won't quote it exactly right, but it'll be close enough. In America, bigotry has no sanction, meaning in America, there will never be bigotry that is given the imprimatur of the United States government. People might be racists, but Washington promised the Jews there will be no state anti-Semitism, which of course is what happened in the Soviet Union. Now, that doesn't mean life was perfect for Jews in America after Washington's letter. There were times when there was anti-Semitism in America, but never state-sponsored. And slowly in the 50s and 60s, anti-Semitism basically disappeared. There are people who are worried that it has in some way raised its ugly head. I am not convinced that there's any serious anti-Semitism in America. I do worry about what happens on college campuses where there is a strong anti-Israel movement. BDS, an attempt to delegitimize the state of Israel. SJP, Students for the Justice in Palestine, are vicious when it comes to Israel and any Jewish student who supports Israel. But the government and daily life does not have any anti-Semitism. Occasional, yes. Occasional horrific events, like what happened in Poway, what happened in Pittsburgh, where a crazy person shot up a synagogue. By the way, it's not just synagogues. Black churches have been shot up. Gay bars have been shot up. Again, it's minorities. A Jew is a minority. And because the Bill of Rights protects minorities, the Jew should understand he has a special interest in the protection of First Amendment rights. And the first of the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment is freedom of speech, which means as long as you're not saying something encouraging someone to hurt someone else, you're free to say it, even if you're wrong. Because, Aryeh, what is wrong today may prove to be right tomorrow. And very often, difference of opinion is just that, opinion. I will give you an example. One of the biggest issues today is the issue of protecting the climate. If you care about our planet and planet Earth, you care about how are people treating our planet. And according to the Jewish tradition, we have an obligation to protect nature, the world, actually the universe. Okay. And it seems like the overwhelming number of scientists have identified problems of climate change caused by human action, especially the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which breaks the, I forgot the word, but basically there's a shield above us that protects us from the sun. And carbon dioxide creates holes in that shield. Okay. There are people who believe, therefore, people are responsible for climate change. Now, there are other scientists, minority to be sure, but there are other scientists who disagree and who say that the climate change we see is cyclical. It happens periodically over hundreds of years. There was an ice age. It wasn't caused by people. There were floods. Wasn't caused by people. So they argue climate change is in some way, even if it's real, it's not humanly, no human being is responsible. And this is important because we're trying to decide policies, social policy, based on climate change needs. So, for example, do you permit an oil line to go from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico? It would be very helpful in terms of American energy and American jobs, but it might hurt the environment. And therefore, you have people arguing against that pipeline. You have people arguing against fracking, against drilling for oil. And then there are people who argue that the benefits outweigh the negatives. And that if America today cleaned up every one of its carbon dioxide emissions. The percentage of America compared to China and India and other countries is so small, it would have no effect. And if you say that to someone, they counter by saying, yes, but America has the responsibility to lead. If America does it, maybe China will follow. Maybe India will follow. It's a legitimate argument. But both sides have an argument. And both sides should have the right to express their argument, to write about their argument. And then people can decide whom do they think is right based on the evidence each group gives. At the moment, social media is censoring anyone who speaks against climate change. And that's the kind of censorship that ultimately is being used by the tech monopolies to silence people who don't agree with them. And because they are liberals and basically liberal Democrats, the ones they are censoring are conservatives and Republicans. And many Jews are Democrats. And so they think this is okay. And my message is, today, this may in some way help you in your quest to change the world. But if the tech companies can censor conservatives today, tomorrow they'll be censoring everybody.
You, meaning
That will
they will
include
censor
you.
you. They will
And if
censor
we
you.
lose free speech and other critical pieces of the Bill of Rights, freedom from state tyranny of religion, ultimately the character of America would change, the personality of America would change, and it would be, in my view, less embracing of the American Jewish community. It would be bad for American Jews if we lost freedom of speech. And, you know, it's interesting. In many ways, when you look at Jewish life, especially traditional Jewish life, or life as it is described in the Talmud, there is authority. And authority is sacred. And what authority says, that's the law. And authority is made up of people with a certain degree of power, legal power. There was a Sanhedrin, and there were more than 72 judges decided issues of Jewish law. And ultimately, when a Sanhedrin decided, that was the law for everyone. And in that sense, Judaism can be seen as, Torah can be seen as authoritarian. But that's a very shallow reading of the way the process worked. Because when you read more about the process in the Talmud, you understand the extent to which a Bet Hillel and a Bet Shammai, two different schools of thought with different approaches to various issues of Jewish law, issues of Jewish life. Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai both were represented in the Sanhedrin, both took part in the votes, and when the vote was taken and a discussion was completed, the entire discussion was recorded in the Talmud both the majority position and the minority position. And the minority position is in the Talmud every time, because the Talmud says you'll never know if in a different time, under different circumstances, the minority might be right. We will respect both. We will record both. And then we will live according to the way in which ultimately the vote goes. And it is a vote. It's amazing how democratic the Jewish tradition is from Talmudic times on. But it is fascinating to see how freedom of thought is encouraged and protected in the Talmud, and then in all of the subsequent codes and midrash, and down to today.
Questions and doubts are encouraged.
People are committed to freedom of thought and freedom of speech. And any attempt to violate, to limit, to eliminate that treasured piece of America is a challenge to me as a Jew. I'm hoping it's a challenge to you, Aryeh. I hope it's a challenge to every one of your viewers. And that's the subject of an upcoming edition of L'chaim, where I'll have Floyd Abrams, hopefully Alan Dershowitz, and others talking about how do you negotiate trying to inhibit hate speech without losing free speech.
It is amazing, Mark. I said it is amazing what you said. And first of all, reiterate what you were saying is that it is encouraged to question, to doubt, to express your opinion. And we never censor questions. Every question is legitimate and good. You can question anything and everything. And in a way, Jewish faith is not fundamental statements of I'm right and everybody or anybody who disagrees with me, they are, we call it apicorus, right? We want to include in the conversation everybody. Now, at the same time, my grandfather used to say to me, we live in a totalitarian state. My grandfather said to me, not because a revolver, revolver is?
Yes.
Not because a gun is put to your head.
Right.
But because anybody knows, or everybody knows, that a gun can be put to your face, to your what it's called, to your head. It can be put to your head if you say something that they don't like to hear. So we in the Soviet Union used to shut up, not to express our opinions, to be scared to say, not because, Facebook or whatever it is was censoring us and not allowing us to express. We knew that we may lose either our jobs or even our freedoms or lives. So here in America, and here's my question for you, we're going to have to finish sometime before 7, but I am very scared to live in America today. Anyway, I'm very grateful to America that I'm here, and I enjoy America tremendously and the freedoms of America. At the same time, I'm a bit scared, and I'll tell you why. The level of rhetoric, violence in speech today is such that it reminds me a little bit of a Soviet Union fear of saying something, not because I'm going to be censored, because I'm afraid to be pushed. I'm afraid to be hurt. I'm afraid to be befriended. I'm afraid to be even maybe violently attacked on the street if I'm going to express. And
give me an example.
Well, examples, you listen, on my blog, we have one person who put a flyer or whatever, a big statement, Biden, Harris. One out of 99, one of 100 houses on my block put this sign. 99 others on my block probably voted Trump, but they were scared to say that because they were scared that their windows will be broken because they saw what's going on in the city and they saw, the demonstrations and the violence. There was simply people are scared. But one thing I wanted to ask you comment on Michigan. What happened in Michigan, if not for feeling the, how to say, the sense of the soul of America today, I would not believe it. I heard the two Republican representatives of the electoral committee, whatever the committee was called, was hesitant to certify the Michigan, I think it was Wayne County results of the elections because there were some irregularities they disagreed with. For a day, they refused, and then there was a level of violence on social media. And I saw the threats. We're coming after you. Like, we're gonna do this to you. We're gonna do that to you. Like, I saw people posting against these two individuals because there were names were put in public, and their lives were threatened, and their family members were threatened. You can see this online. You can see it on websites. People publish the threats to them. Suddenly at night, they reversed their decision and they certified. It was, I believe, Tuesday night. This morning, Mark, I don't know if you know this, today is Thursday. This morning, they put a statement that they agreed out of fear and therefore really want to withdraw their agreement to this certification. So I'm not going into, if these falsifications of elections, fantasy of the right-wing extremists, so to speak, or Giuliani or Sidney Powell, if this is all fake news, like CNN is claiming, they say this press conference that took place today was free of facts. Some others say, wow, it was amazing. I actually watched it as well. For me, it was shocking. I couldn't believe watching this, like the kind of stories and evidence they were putting in front of me. But let's say CNN experts understand better. So I'm not judging who's right or who's wrong. But I am concerned if people are scared to certify or not certify, either the liberals or the conservatives, they're scared to say what they think because their lives are threatened. There's something wrong in the society.
A, I agree with you. B, is it as bad as you say?
Did you ever hear before that two people say we were scared? I mean, I know judges sometimes need to issue a statement or a verdict against the mafia boss.
I want to be fair.
Yes.
I've been on JBS the entire day, so I haven't seen this press conference. When did you see it?
It was this morning. It was about 12 o'clock. And the statement about Michigan people once again reversing their decision was about 11 a.m.
And did you see them actually say this, or
It
did
was all over the
somebody?
news. It was, yeah. It's an official statement everywhere. It's all news know about it.
I
Yeah.
want to make sure I understand. Did you hear them, or did you hear a report about what they said?
I saw on I can, if you want, we're right now on on Zoom.
Yes.
I can show you my screen and
Show me your screen.
I'm gonna do it for you.
Love it. I love it.
Okay, I can do it for you and for our readers. So this is Fox News. As you know, Fox News today is very, kind of not necessarily for Trump at all. We don't need to suspect them. They're very much called, as you know, Arizona, I believe, First Network, and they think that Trump needs to, give, basically to seize power. So that is about Giuliani presses Trump election what's called challenge case in fiery news conference with legal team. This is Facebook about this, and on their news, I'll show you once again. I'm gonna click on this democracy, right? I'm clicking on this, I believe, or I'm already here. It was in news on Pence's campaign. There was news in the morning about reversal of the Yep. Maybe it was in the morning, and it's Wayne County. Look, please. Here it is. This is what they do. Here's video. Of course, I can put the video for you to see. Do you hear the sound or no?
I do. Let me hear it.
We need to.
It's all right. It's all right. That's just a commercial.
Yeah, I'll.
Indiana, Ohio State. All those who are watching in Indiana, Ohio State. Okay, here we go.
Breaking news now from Wayne County, Michigan. In a dramatic reversal, Wayne County Election Board Republicans have reportedly rescinded their votes, certifying the results in Michigan last night. You remember there was a flip-flop. Well, Kevin Cork has a copy of what we're told are their just released affidavits. Kevin, what can you tell us?
Yeah, you're right. Just to reset the table for the people who didn't get a chance to see your report last night, Shannon, there were these Republicans in Wayne County that for a great part of the day simply said they would not vote to certify the vote there. Again, that's the most populous county in the state of Michigan, because they felt like there were so many voting irregularities. Then after a pressure campaign, they then said they would go ahead and vote to certify. That is provided that the Secretary of State in the state of Michigan would authorize an audit of the votes in Wayne County. Well, that has now changed again. Tonight, we've just learned that they're rescinding their agreement to certify the vote. And I want to read part of an affidavit, this one from Monica Palmer. She says this. She says, and this is very interesting. She says, later that evening, I was sent statements that Secretary Jocelyn Benson made saying that she did not view our audit resolution to be binding. That's very important. Her comments disputed the representations made by the vice chair, on which I relied. As a result of these facts, I rescind my prior vote to certify Wayne County elections. I fully believe Wayne County vote should not be certified. Again, that from Monica Palmer. So again, the bottom line here is it was suggested to the Republicans that yes, they would go ahead and authorize an audit. Then the Secretary of State, the state of Michigan, said, that's not necessarily binding. I don't have to do that. And that made them flip again. So the very latest we have tonight, Republicans who agreed to certify now say they will not, Shannon.
Yeah, and I talked to one of the attorneys on the ground there who's been working on some of these cases, and he said last night, I asked him if the Secretary of State won't agree to the audit, is it going to nullify their votes? And he said that's entering a very sticky legal territory. So it seems like that may be part of what we're hearing tonight from them, is that they are not confident that was going to happen. All right, Kevin, I want to read a little bit of what we're hearing from Jenna Ellis, attorney with the Trump legal team. This is what she says. She says, we've also learned that they did not sign to certify the false results. They're using the word false results. A stamp of their signature rather than a wet signature was apparently put on the certification vote. Their statements clearly show they are concerned that 71% of precincts have discrepancies in the vote totals, and they cannot in good faith agree to certify. The president and the Trump campaign are very grateful for the courage of these election officials to deny certification of false results. We'll keep trying to get more information and confirm this with those two board canvassers themselves. Thanks so much.
Yes.
Well, okay, I love you, and you and I see the world in a very similar fashion, but what you described to me was not in that clip at all. What they described was there was a political deal made that if the two Republicans agreed to sign and say they would certify the votes, the state of Georgia promised to do a recount. They then found out that the Secretary of State of Georgia was not going to honor that agreement, and therefore they took back their vote. It's no mention. There was no mention at all. Ari.
The headline, Mark. The headline was.
I don't care about the headline. You're
Right.
oh, you're a newspaper man.
No. The headline. They said they were bullied into agreeing, and
all
then
I know is I just heard a story
okay.
from a reporter who
Right.
never mentioned bullying or fear at all. And I want to stress this. I am very upset with the media as a whole. And the reason I'm upset is I don't believe you can trust them. And I happen to think you can trust Fox much more than you can trust CNN and MSNBC. But I don't fool myself. Every one of these networks picks and chooses what they show us. Fox shows us more. And I also believe Fox shows us things that should be very upsetting to us, while CNN and MSNBC hide what they know will be very upsetting to us. But it's very important that someone, an editor of a newspaper like you, and the head of a television network like me, we don't get suckered into, somebody used a phrase today for me, commercialization of journalism. What does that mean? That means that these television channels, they're trying to make money. By the way, they have the right to make money. The New York Times has the right to make money. Any newspaper has the right to make money. If Rescue Beer has the right to make money. Even if you're nonprofit, you have the right to get donations that will support you. But you don't have the right to sensationalize the news because you think to yourself, my viewer is going to only watch the headline. And I'm sorry, because you know I love you. You fell into that trap. You thought you were going to play for me a clip where somebody described how two Republicans were bullied and were frightened into changing their vote. And that was not the story at all. And I'll say it to you again. I am worried about America. Now, we've talked about that now for the last 2-3 weeks, whatever, last week, and I'm happy to talk to you about it every week. I am really worried about America. And I'm worried, by the way, because I am worried that the far left of the Democratic Party, the progressive left, is going to try to take over the Democratic Party. And I don't think they are lovers of Israel. I think they're lovers of the Palestinians. And I also think that they really don't like Jews. You know, there are these congresswomen, Omar and Tlaib, and they
Not
say,
only Jews. The question is, do they like American spirit that you're talking about?
yeah, by the way, I don't think they like America the way I like America. But I'm being honest here. My concern right now is, will it hurt the Jewish people? And I'm afraid it will. And that frightens me. And we'll have to see what a Biden-Harris administration does. All I know is people hated Donald Trump. 70% of the Jewish community they hate him. He's Hitler. He's Goering. And just nonsense like you wouldn't believe. They hate him. And they won't give him any credit for what he's done that's good for America or good for Israel. And notice I started with America, nor for American Jewry. I don't know if your audience is aware of something called Title VI. Title VI is a civil rights act which protects minorities from discrimination. Donald Trump said Title VI from now on will extend to American Jews as well. Anti-Semitism is against the law like any other act of racism. Barack Obama didn't do that. Bill Clinton didn't do that. George Bush didn't do that. Donald Trump did. Donald Trump got up and at a State of the Union address spoke out against anti-Semitism. I didn't hear any other president do that in my entire lifetime. Those things matter to me.
I think those things matter to America because those who bless Jews are blessed, as we know. because those who protect minorities in general, and I'm so sensitive and grateful to you for speaking actually about protecting African-American community and minority in general, and therefore the hated for thousands of years Jewish minority
That's right.
is a symbol of sensitivity
That's right.
and maturity of any society. And the blessed America that protects Jews and others.
That's brilliant.
And those who attack Jews will eventually attack others.
You are 1,000% correct.
And you, whoever you is listening to us,
That's right.
correct? Whoever is the you listening to us, am I right? If you do not protect the minority today, you will be
You're
attacked.
next. You're next. By the way, you know this word. I want you to explain it in Russian and then also give your own drash. There's a word that's often used in the Torah. It's the response that our heroes gave when called upon. So when God calls upon Abraham, his answer is Hineni. When God calls upon Moses, his answer is Hineni. I want you to explain what Hineni means and why the Jew has stood for that statement. Here I am, I'm ready to do the right thing. Explain it, please.
And actually, it was a Jewish organization led in the city of Manhattan, in the city of New York, by a Holocaust survivor, Rebbetzin Jan Rice, who led the organization called Hineni.
That's what she called her, or Hineni for this very reason.
Correct, Hineni. Well, I would say, here I am ready to.
And what is it in Russian?
What? Yeah, I'm. You know, how would you translate it to English? What's your English translation of Hineni?
The English translation is "Here I am," but
Correct.
it doesn't. It is a a colloquialism. What it really means is, here I am, ready to do the right thing, even if it's dangerous.
Correct. I am ready. I translated this in Russian like, I am ready to serve you. I am ready to serve my community.
Right.
I am ready to serve my country. I am ready to sacrifice myself.
Okay, and excuse me for interrupting, but we're almost out of time.
Yes, please.
What you've done with Rage is help young Russian Americans to learn Hineni. Good for you. And by the way, you sent me some videos. They're so professionally done by kids at Rage.
By kids.
I was very impressed. But I want you to know, I don't know if there's ever a circumstance where it would make sense. But if you ever need me to do a class in at Rage, Zoom, whatever.
Yes.
If I would be honored to do so. I would love to share my understanding of Torah. And it's very similar to yours, but not identical to yours.
You know what? I'm going to ask you, even though some people already joining for our class, but it's beautiful. I'm going to ask you something that I would like you to comment. I made today a video. I posted a video today, basically turning to my friends and urging them for a dialogue between different parts of society, because I am teaching many college students. And you understand, my audience are kids that come from liberal colleges, and these are my students, and I love them. And I'm not telling you necessarily these views, that views. I have different views. And my appeal was to both sides. I said, those are my friends, we have family, let's have a dialogue. Someone posted to me a comment that said, how can you have like this kind of liberal friends, like those who hate Israel or support BDS even? Okay, well, I didn't say this. I didn't speak to, but some people, yes, very openly speak about greatness of socialism. Oh yes, You will be surprised. Children of refuseniks praising socialism.
Wow.
Absolutely, yes. I can even send you a discussion, and children of refuseniks are very passionate supporters of Bernie Sanders and socialism in America. Yes. So and I have a dialogue with them. So some people said to me, like, why do you have a dialogue? And my answer to them, these are my children.
Mm-hmm.
They may disagree with me. I may disagree with them, but I love them.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer to them in our parsha, which I wanted you to comment, Isaac, who is one of the founding fathers, loved his, so to speak, wicked son Esau. And the rabbis, when they explain, they don't say that he was blind, but he believed in his son, and he felt that he needed to invest his love and attention. He never expelled him from his home because he believed in human nature. And when the times will come, and all the, so to speak, forefathers and their souls will be praying to the heavens, asking Hashem to bring Mashiach. And Jews would not deserve. Only Isaac's prayer will be accepted, because he will be the one who would say, look how I treated my son. Please treat your children the same way.
That's a wonderful midrash. And it gives me goose pimples, gives me chills. And I believe it reflects the best in Judaism. Good for you.
What is your, so to speak, take on the love for everybody, for every Jew?
I cannot improve upon what you've just said. So I simply want to say to you, I am always here for you, and I'm always here for your community. And it's been an honor for me to talk to you today, as it was last week. And you can call upon me anytime. I know you can go teach now. Have a wonderful session. And my best to everybody. And remember, JBS, Jewish Broadcasting Service, on Optimum, channel 138, on Verizon, Fios, 798, Spectrum, 219, DirecTV, 388, RCN, 269, I think. And starting December 8th, all over America, on Comcast, channel 1684, 1684. Good night.
And Shabbat Shalom.
And Shabbat Shalom. Love you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye-bye.
All the best to you. Thank you so much.